Hello, welcome to the Roundtable. We are back to bring you the latest issues in global affairs. Time is indeed flying, and we are already in the month of February 2024. We'll be looking deeply into global affairs with you. Here, we are joined by two experts who will guide you through today's topics. We have Professor Pyongyang of Unwavering University with us.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. And we also have Professor Kim Hena of Samsung University. Welcome to the program.
Great to be back again.
First of all, last week, North Korea once again hit the headlines with a lot of provocations.
Yes, exactly. North Korea has launched the cruise missiles 4 times of the cruise missiles in 10 days. And also, they are saying that they are building up the nuclear-powered submarine.
Right. Professor Kim, there is a report that North Korea indeed launched a new type of submarine, allegedly nuclear-propelled submarines, right?
Yeah, so the official North Korean media has shared photos of Kim Jong-un visiting the construction site of the nuclear submarines, and they showed this for the very first time.
I see. So today we are going to talk about whether or not North Korea has indeed developed this technology, and if South Korea can have its own nuclear submarine. Professor Park, for our viewers, could you kindly explain the difference between the conventional submarines and the nuclear submarines?
Yes, of course, there are huge differences between these two different types of submarines, but I will set out just 2 differences. First, the nuclear-powered submarine is unlimited capability to underwater. They haven't had any necessity to on the surface at all. It means that they have a very long time on the submarine, and it's going to prolong the operational time as a very effective way to deliver, especially about nuclear missiles. And second is they are far less noise than the other, like diesel and conventional submarine. And this is important because whenever we have a so-called anti-submarine operation, it's important to have detect the noise of the submarine using sonar. And in that sense, the nuclear-powered submarine is far less noise than the other conventional. And on top of that, usually we are saying that if this country who really wanted to have the nuclear capability, the last resort, and the final phase or goal is to have a nuclear-powered submarine with the SLBM, of course, the nuclear warhead. So that's why North Korea is trying to have achieve this nuclear-powered submarine so that they can have a so-called second strike capability.
So, Professor Park, North Korea announced that it has launched nuclear submarines since 2023, and the Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un made a visit to the factory that supposedly manufactured the nuclear submarines. Are these news real?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But I think at this very moment, it's pretty much doubt that North Korea is actually having this nuclear-powered submarine because there are a couple of reasons. First, they introduced Kim Gun-ok submarine the last year, which is the conventional and diesel submarine, but it's very weird. Some people are saying that it's like the monster and Frankenstein. They have attended the launch of this SLBM on the top. So for the first time seeing these kind of things. And also, so people are pretty much doubt about whether it's really operable or not. But it seems to me that North Korea, especially Kim Jong-un, is very clearly ordered to build a nuclear-powered submarine in 2021 when they have an 8th Party Congress. They are introduced 5 strategic weaponry, and one of them is nuclear-powered submarine. So we know that North Korea, if Kim Jong-un is the supreme leader ordered, everybody should follow that order. That's one of the reasons to build this very different and monster type of the Kim Gun-ok submarine. And second one is that it takes a very long period of time to actually build the nuclear-powered submarine. And on top of that, they need a very top-notch technologies too. And also, it's very expensive. So all those things then pretty much hinder to have the North Korea actually develop this nuclear-powered submarine because we are known that North Korea is put under very heavy sanction. They haven't had enough money and especially have no way to get the important materials and technology. But people are saying that Russia would be the help to build the nuclear power submarine. But I don't think that's the case at all because there's no record Russia has transferred this kind of high-tech technology to other countries. Another very important kind of obstacle is that it takes a very long period of time. It takes more than 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, and actually, using in the real operation, it takes also 4 or 5 years. So total of more than a decade to complete, have the capability of nuclear-powered submarine.
Okay. And I concur with you that the Kim-gun Okyuro submarine had a very weird design when it was showcased on September 6th last year, 2023, because imagine the pickup truck. Then the driver's seat is separate from the rear panel where you load and unload heavy cargo, right? Otherwise, then the driver's seat will be crushed by the weight of the heavy cargo. But if you look at the nuclear submarine introduced by North Korea last year, the launchers of the missiles was too close to the wheelhouse, the operation room of the submarine. Then if North Korean submarine is going to fire those missiles, then the wheelhouse, the operation room will be crushed. So based upon the analysis of the design, I don't think the submarine is a real threat yet.
Yeah, so it is a bit doubtful that this claimed submarine may be able to be deployed for combat purposes, but many people are still concerned about this North Korean threat and are curious as to whether or not South Korea also needs to introduce nuclear-propelled submarines as well.
Professor Park, what do you think of this? So that South Korea has to make a response to North Korea's development of the nuclear submarines, whether it is true or not. But South Korea has all the reasons to, prepare itself for the worst-case scenarios.
It is important to have for the deterrence purpose, for our own defense. It's pretty much different goal. The reason that North Korea developed the nuclear-powered submarine is for the offensive purpose, but we are the defensive purpose. Definitely, we need that. But problem is that it's very difficult to get this nuclear-powered submarine. I mentioned that it takes a pretty long period, more than a decade. And on top of that, because South Korea, we do have the so-called nuclear agreement with the United States. Right. We couldn't develop our own indigenous nuclear submarine unless we kind of revised this agreement with the United States. And second one is that if we would not have any chance to get some technological transfer from the United States, it will take more than a decade. And finally, operational in the combat, the scene takes almost 15 years. And one more thing is that, that President Biden, his slogan, his lifetime conviction is nuclear-free world. There would be no chance that the Biden administration agreed to have South Korea to have our own indigenous nuclear-powered submarine. But what if Trump is coming back? It's definitely totally different story.
So, Prof. Kim, what is our government, South Korean government, saying about this?
So in 2020, the South Korean government officially said that it's developing a new generation submarine which relies on nuclear energy. But officially, there hasn't been a lot said beyond that. But we can assume that if especially regarding its construction, but we can assume that if things are progressing as they are, then we can expect to hear from them soon. Dr. Bong, I was curious, what do you think about nuclear submarines being developed in South Korea?
In my personal opinion, I agree with Professor Park's argument that it'll be kind of redundant for South Korea to develop its own nuclear submarines because South Korea enjoys the clear upper hand over North Korea's Navy and submarines with its diesel-powered submarines, 209 and 214. So unless South Korea is going to have the ambitions to cover the entire Pacific Ocean with the nuclear submarines, developing and maintaining a nuclear submarine would not be the best way to appropriate very scarce and precious financial resources at this time. And thanks to the result of the Washington Declaration signed between U.S. President Joe Biden and South Korean Yoon Suk-yeol last year, U.S. nuclear submarines are coming to the Korean Peninsula. So South Korea does not really have to have its own nuclear submarines when it has the security commitment fulfilled by the United States with the mobilization of American nuclear submarines for the security of the Korean Peninsula at this point.
At this point.
Introducing advanced military assets and establishing waterfight defense capabilities against North Korea are important, of course. North Korea's provocations lead South Korea to enhance its security posture, which in turn gives the North an excuse to make greater military provocations. Is there any way out of this vicious cycle of the security dilemma? Professor Kim, first.
So, according to political science Robert Jervis, the way to mitigate the security dilemma is under two conditions. One is when the defense has an advantage, and when offensive postures and defensive postures can be distinguishable. In the case of South Korea, with North Korea's nuclear development, but with South Korea being under the United States' nuclear umbrella, the first condition has already been taken care of. But when we think about it in the second condition, the offensive posture and defensive posture are still not distinguishable. So South Korea and North Korea need to take action in order to show their defensive posture and position.
Well, personally, I don't agree with put this kind of the inter-Korean relations in the security area in the security dilemma, because it is important to the motivation of each country. Of course, Jervis, I agree with that a lot, but a little bit different argument. There is no chance that South Korea, United States, or South Korea United States alliance to forced attack to North Korea. Whether this is preemptively or preventively, there's no chance at all. So I always argue that North Korea is making about this kind of threat for their own interest, so-called seize mentality. They are saying that they are being seized by the hostile for countries such as South Korea, United States, and Japan for their own domestic purpose to bring the people's consolidation. So this is kind of not the security dilemma at all. North Korea is very clearly have a proposing to have an offensive purpose, and also definitely this is an illegal way to develop all this kind of, especially nuclear weapon. On the other hand, South Korea is definitely legal our self-defense, and we are very clear and our own development plan. So I think there's a very, very fundamental differences between South Korea and North Korea's development of the weapons.
I see. Whether North Korea has actually acquired capability to possess nuclear-propelled submarines or not, it is essential for South Korea and other countries to have the sufficient defensive capability to deal with provocations waged by North Korea. It seems the two Koreas need to at least find common ground to manage this crisis-like situation and break through the deadline. Let's move on to the next topic, which is the return of Donald Trump. This is the most talked about topic ahead of the United States presidential election in November, which is now 9 months away. He's not the conventional politician, to say the least. He is known for his controversial and eccentric styles. Then why? Why is he appealing to American voters? Let's take a look at the video first, and we'll continue to talk about it.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country.
After losing the 2020 election, then-President Donald Trump raised allegations of voter fraud. 4 years after losing to Biden, Trump is back to run for president again in 2024. Trump is the frontrunner in the Republican nomination race. He unleashed intensive attacks and insults against Biden and his camp. Trump went so far as to call Biden crooked, raising questions about his mental fitness.
He can't put two sentences together. He can't speak. He's saying, I'm a threat to democracy. He's a threat to democracy.
In March last year, Trump became the first former U.S. president to be indicted criminally. He faces 91 charges in 4 criminal cases, which include his election interference attempts in 2020 and hush money payments to cover up sexual misconduct allegations, as well as mishandling classified records and inciting the Capitol attack on January 6, 2021. However, his approval ratings have been going up since he was given the indictments. It is because Trump is describing himself as a victim of political persecution, and Republican Party supporters are rallying around him. In a recent hypothetical rematch, Trump beat Biden 40% to 34%, holding a 6 percentage point lead. In every speech, Trump attacks the 81-year-old Biden for his old age. In a September survey, 73% of respondents answered that Biden is too old to be president again. Biden's unpopular Bidenomics is helping Trump enjoy greater support, as American voters are being drawn to Trump's economic plan, characterized by the America First policy and trade protectionism. By pitching his economic plan, Trump appears to be on a glide path to the Republican nomination and a rematch with Biden for a return to the White House.
In economics, the term gray rhino is used to refer to a predictable, preventable, and potential risk that can cause or amplify a crisis if ignored long enough. Professor Kim, don't you think this is a good expression to describe Trump's comeback to US election?
I think it is, and especially because Trump is such a polarizing figure, those who don't support him probably view him as a gray rhino and this kind of force that's coming and that can't be stopped, and a lot of people don't know what to do about him. But I think another way to describe Trump's potential comeback would be describing him as the elephant in the room. We all know that he's there, and it's very likely or possible that he may come back, and we're choosing to ignore it.
I see. Before we go on to analyze Trump's characters, let's talk about a right-wing conspiracy theory that American pop star Taylor Swift is a secret government agent for a plot to back Biden over Trump. Professor Park, about this controversy?
Yes, I know very well, because the Taylor Swift, you see, she's a strong supporter of the Democratic Party, especially the Biden, since 2018. And she used her SNS. Of course, there are millions, probably several millions of followers of her SNS. And she is very clearly mentioning that she supports Democratic Party because Democratic Party is guaranteed minority right. And at the same time, she also, not officially, but kind of officially, in a sense, that she said that she would not like to be seeing president to be reelected. So that's why so-called MAGA, the Make America Great Again, very strong support of the Trump, and they don't like the Swift. So that's why they are, kind of create this kind of conspiracy theory. And we all know that the Trump supporters and Trump himself, in a sense, they like to talk about this conspiracy all the time.
Right. Professor Kim, conspiracy theory as such can be regarded as absurd, but at the same time, it's a good indicator that election in the United States is actually rapidly heating up, right? So how popular is Mr. Donald Trump as a politician and probably the presidential candidate for the Republican Party?
Right, so as you mentioned, it seems as though things are heating up a lot, and because of that, the statistics are showing that there's a lot of variation right now. So according to data by the website 538, 52.5% have an unfavorable view of Trump, while 42.7% have a favorable view of Trump. So this is a difference of 9.8%. But the interesting thing is that this difference has actually decreased over time. So his unfavorability has decreased while his favorability has increased, which is showing that we're going to see a very tight race if he becomes the Republican nominated candidate.
Okay. We have to ask this question. Why is he running again, and how is appealing to the voters, despite the great deal of controversies and legal risks facing him? Professor Park, what charms does he have? Right?
Well, I can ask you too about this question. Do you think this is Trump's America or America's Trump? Which one do you prefer? America's Trump or Trump's America? That's a very important question. What do you think about that?
So meaning that Trump is a polarizing figure, but Trump is so successful as a politician because American society and politics are already polarized.
Yes, yes, exactly. So that's why I asked a very kind of symbolic way, Trump's America or America's Trump. What about Professor Kim?
I would think that it falls along partisan lines.
Okay, all right. So I definitely think that this is the America's Trump, not the Trump's America, because we are calling the Trump as Hurricane Trump, which accelerate this polarized of the United States. But since 1970s, the United States society in general already is becoming polarized. Of course, for past 10 years, far more polarized. But when we are seeing the root of the polarization, we can going back to 1970s, so-called Rust Belt. They are losing all the industrial base, and at the same time, the United States has a very rapidly developed their economy because of the Wall Street in east part, East Coast, and the west part, the Silicon Valley. They are the two very strong locomotive to bring the United States the developed economy. But all the other, especially white people who have the blue collar workers, they are very frustrated of all these things. So that's why they wanted to have a new leader, and then at that very moment, Trump are pointing out this why their life is so suffered. Of course, he's talking about the illegal immigrant and the Washington establishment, and of course China, and of course in South Korea too, because South Korea is the one very wealthy allies, but do not pay enough the burden sharing and all those things. So I think we are seeing the very root cause that we are, it's kind of inevitable to see the Trump.
What do you think, Professor Kim?
I completely agree with Professor Park, especially because, as Professor Park mentioned, Trump is very good at creating an enemy and showing and framing things as though that the enemy is taking things away from the common American. So this is often called group threat theory, where there's an in-group and then there's an out-group. And Trump is very good at making it seem as though the out-group is taking away resources and taking away all of the opportunities that the average American could have had. And so in that sense, Trump is very good at appealing to this group of usually working class voters, but also he has that image of a strongman leader, and that seems to be very popular worldwide right now, and so he's kind of following that trend, but he also has the image of this quote-unquote successful self-made businessman. And a lot of Americans really see him in that way and hope to be like him. So I think that kind of image also works for him as well.
He knows how to approach the ordinary people, very effectively deliver his speech. And his speech is very simple, very agitate the people, very propagandistic and things. And another thing is that I think you may have a chance to see his 47 agendas, and very well organized, very well made. I was really surprised because the Heritage Foundation, they are preparing this kind of agenda for several years, and they already released the report Project 2025. Total is more than 900 pages, very detailed, and some of them are very persuasive. One of the examples is that Trump make his platform pledge that if he would be the president of the United States again, he will put in the Constitution that there is only two gender, which is the male and female. That's it. Because you see right now LGBTQ plus 19-something the gender, and this make a very confused, especially some Christians in the United States. So that's one of the very kind of example that can get the support from the important portion of the United States people, the Christian community.
So in addition to what Professor Park said, I think when Trump first appeared, as Professor Park mentioned, he came at the right time, but he also really seemed very anti-institution. So a lot of voters that voted for Trump were tired of the traditional system. They felt as though it wasn't working for them. They were, and so because of that, Trump seemed to be this kind of new hero for a lot of these working class, usually white voters. And so I think if other politicians can show that they can relate to the average American citizen in the same way, that would also help in terms of gaining support for other politicians as well.
With the US presidential election some 9 months away, we cannot easily predict if Trump is going to win or lose and who will win the White House. But it is necessary for us to closely examine why Trump remains so popular among a majority of American voters. This is all we have for you today. We'll be back next week with more updates on global affairs and what matters to you. Professor Kim and Professor Park, thank you so much for joining our program today.
Thank you.
Thank you.